The story begins with an ordinary and somewhat awkward boy named Rick. One day he wakes up late for school and starts running with all his strength after the school bus. After a lot of struggle, he finally manages to stop the bus and climb inside, but nobody is happy to see him. The truth is that almost no one at school likes Rick. No one is willing to let him sit beside them, so in the end he goes and sits next to his only friend, Trey. While sitting on the bus, Rick keeps looking at Jill Johnson over and over again. He has a huge crush on her and cannot take his eyes off her. Trey tries to explain that Jill will never like him back, but instead of listening, Rick continues staring at her. After some time, the school bus arrives at an animal research center where the students are shown rare animals. Even there, Rick starts trying to impress Jill. He confidently approaches her and tells her that he is a great photographer and can take amazing pictures of her. The problem is that photography is completely forbidden inside the research center. Despite that, Rick secretly pulls out his camera and takes a picture of a bird. However, the moment the camera flash goes off, the bird suddenly catches fire. Rick panics and quickly tries to put out the flames, but the bird flies away and lands directly on Lawrence. Lawrence is Jill's boyfriend and he already dislikes Rick. Furious, Lawrence is just about to beat Rick up when Uncle Lou arrives. Uncle Lou is Lawrence's uncle and one of the major investors in the research center. He asks Rick about his parents. Sadly, Rick explains that his parents passed away many years ago and that he now lives with his aunt and uncle. Hearing this makes Uncle Lou emotional and he quietly walks away. But as soon as Uncle Lou leaves, Lawrence starts bullying Rick again. The poor boy ends up falling into a pile of filthy animal waste. The entire school laughs at him and he is humiliated in front of everyone. Trying to clean himself, Rick picks up a nearby container. He assumes it contains water, but in reality, it is filled with a dangerous chemical. Without thinking, Rick pours the entire substance all over himself. He has no idea that the chemical was designed to attract male animals. Within seconds, animals from every direction begin charging toward him. Some jump on him, others try to grab him, and the entire research center falls into chaos. The students burst into laughter while Rick once again becomes the biggest joke around. In the middle of all this madness, a strange dragonfly suddenly flies over and bites Rick. But because he is surrounded by so many animals, he does not even notice it. More and more animals continue gathering around him, making the situation even worse. The funniest part is that instead of helping him, Trey pulls out his phone and starts recording everything. His plan is to upload the video to YouTube and make money from it. Once again, poor Rick ends up becoming the biggest laughingstock in school. Eventually, the trip to the research center comes to an end, and all the students return home. But Rick is feeling terrible. He is completely exhausted and weak. Somehow he manages to make it home. His aunt and uncle are already waiting for him. Instead of letting him rest, his uncle immediately gives him the task of feeding the fish. Rick slowly walks over to the fish tank, but suddenly he starts feeling extremely nauseous. A moment later, he vomits directly into the tank. He is so exhausted that he can barely stand. Without saying a word, he drags himself to his room and collapses onto his bed, instantly falling asleep. At that very moment, the story takes a major turn. Elsewhere, Uncle Lou is shown inside a secret laboratory surrounded by doctors and scientists. It is revealed that he is suffering from a deadly disease. The doctors bluntly tell him that he does not have much time left. However, Uncle Lou is not the type to give up. For years, he has been working with a scientist on a special machine that might cure his illness. The doctors repeatedly warn him that the machine is not fully tested and that using it could be extremely dangerous. But Uncle Lou refuses to listen. He orders the machine to be activated immediately. Everyone tries to stop him, but he forcefully enters the machine. The moment it powers up, a massive explosion echoes throughout the lab. The people present assume the experiment has failed. Some scientists even start mocking Uncle Lou. But suddenly, something horrifying happens. Uncle Lou reaches out and grabs a scientist's hand. Slowly, he begins draining the scientist's life energy. Within seconds, the scientist collapses to the floor and dies. At that moment, Uncle Lou realizes that the machine actually worked. He discovers that as long as he continues stealing the energy of other humans, his disease will never be able to kill him. From that moment onward, Uncle Lou becomes more dangerous than ever before. Meanwhile, poor Rick is still sleeping peacefully at home. He has no idea that his school's annual function is taking place that very day. The chief guest of the event is the world-famous scientist Stephen Hawking. He steps onto the stage and gives the students a motivational speech. He explains how he never gave up despite his physical limitations and always continued moving forward in life. The students listen carefully to every word, but Rick is focused on something entirely different. Throughout the entire event, he is only trying to impress Jill. During the program, he accidentally bumps into Lawrence once again, and as usual, Lawrence immediately becomes angry. Then something strange happens. Rick's hand gets stuck inside a nearby sink. No matter how hard he tries, he cannot pull it out. Finally, when he uses all his strength, the entire sink breaks loose and crashes directly onto Lawrence. Lawrence's anger instantly reaches another level. He charges toward Rick, ready to beat him up. Terrified, Rick runs away. While running, he accidentally collides with a very large man. What happens next seems completely impossible. The moment Rick bumps into the man, both of his hands suddenly stick to the man's body. Somehow, he manages to pull himself free, but in the process, the man's clothes are ripped right off. Everyone nearby is shocked. No one can understand what is happening to Rick. It becomes clear that some kind of strange and extraordinary power has awakened inside him. Frightened and completely confused, Rick runs out of the school. One question keeps repeating inside his mind. Do I really have superpowers? To find the truth, he attempts to climb the wall of a nearby building. The moment he touches the wall, his hand sticks to it. In the next instant, he effortlessly begins climbing up the surface. Rick is stunned. Now he is completely convinced that something extraordinary has happened to him. Just then, he notices a woman walking her dog across the street. Suddenly, a large truck comes speeding toward her. The driver has lost control and the brakes have failed. It looks as though a terrible accident is about to occur within seconds. Without hesitation, Rick leaps forward. Using all his strength, he shoves the woman out of the way and saves her life. But in the process, Rick himself gets hit by the truck. People nearby scream in terror. Everyone assumes Rick is dead. However, when the dust settles, everyone is left speechless. Rick is standing there completely unharmed. There is not even a scratch on his body. Meanwhile, the truck is completely wrecked. The crowd is stunned. But then the story takes another shocking turn. The very woman Rick pushed to safety slips violently and falls into a nearby wood-cutting machine, dying instantly. Rick is devastated. He cannot understand whether he saved her life or accidentally caused her death. Later, when Rick arrives home, he excitedly tells his aunt and uncle everything that happened. He explains that he has gained superpowers and believes the dragonfly bite may have caused them. At first, his aunt and uncle do not believe him. To test his claim, his uncle suddenly attacks him with a knife. But the moment the knife strikes Rick's body, the blade bends instantly. Rick does not receive even the smallest injury. Now his uncle is forced to accept that Rick is no longer an ordinary human. After this, the story shows a tragic memory from Rick's childhood. One night, Rick was returning home with his parents after watching a show. Suddenly, some robbers attacked them. Rick tried to protect his parents, but during the chaos, he accidentally became the reason for their deaths. Before dying, his father gave him a special ring. Rick still carries that ring to this day. Perhaps that ring holds the greatest secret of his past. Filled with anger and sadness, Rick throws the ring away, but something terrifying happens. The ring suddenly flies back to him on its own. Rick is still trying to understand his new abilities. He cannot figure out how any of this is happening. Just then Jill arrives. She tells Rick that she is no longer happy with Lawrence and wants to go on a date with him. As usual, poor Rick completely misunderstands what she means. At that moment, Lawrence arrives in a brand new sports car. Looking at the car, Jill tells Rick that if he had a car like that, the two of them could go on long drives together. Hearing this, Rick's face immediately falls. A few moments later, Jill leaves with Lawrence. Rick silently looks at his old broken bicycle and realizes that he could never afford such an expensive car. Later, when he gets home, Rick begins researching his powers on the internet. There, he learns about a professor who runs a secret school for children with special abilities. Determined to uncover the truth about his powers, Rick decides that he must meet this professor and discover just how powerful he really is. The next day, Rick decides that if he truly wants to impress Jill, he needs a sports car as well. For that reason, he goes to a bank with his aunt and uncle to apply for a loan. But the moment they enter the bank, several armed robbers suddenly storm inside. Within seconds, the entire bank is filled with panic and fear. People start running in every direction, and screams echo throughout the building. Rick somehow manages to get his aunt safely outside. But then something very strange happens. The robbers try to leave the bank. However, the bank doors refuse to open. Actually, Rick could have stopped the robbers using his powers, and if he wanted, he could have easily captured all of them. But surprisingly, he secretly helps them escape instead. As soon as Rick steps outside, he notices a crowd gathered on the street. A small monkey is performing tricks in the middle of the road, entertaining everyone. But suddenly, Rick hears a painful scream from his uncle. He immediately rushes toward him and is horrified by what he sees. His uncle's condition has become extremely serious. Within a short time, a medical team arrives and quickly takes him to the hospital. Once again, a major turning point arrives in Rick's life. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou is sitting alone in his office. Looking at himself in the mirror, he seems very pleased with his new powers. Just then, his assistant enters the room. However, Uncle Lou suddenly begins feeling weak again. Without wasting a second, he grabs her wrist and starts draining her life energy. Within moments, the woman dies and all of Uncle Lou's strength returns. He calmly hides her dead body inside a closet. Now it becomes completely clear that Uncle Lou is willing to kill anyone in order to stay alive. At the hospital, Rick goes to visit his injured uncle. After everything that has happened, he finally decides to meet the mysterious professor he had read about on the internet. The professor takes Rick to his secret school, where children and adults with special powers live. Upon arriving, Rick is amazed because everyone appears completely normal. However, each person possesses some strange ability. Some can fly. Others can move objects using only their minds. The entire place feels like it is filled with real superheroes. Afterward, the professor introduces Rick to his wife. In her lap is what appears to be a small doll. But suddenly, the doll raises its hand and throws the professor across the entire room. Rick quickly realizes that it is not a toy at all. It is their young son, who also possesses dangerous superpowers. The professor's wife becomes slightly irritated when she sees Rick. Scolding him, she says that he wants to become a superhero but has not even chosen a costume yet. She immediately orders him to pick a superhero suit. Rick then designs his own superhero costume. He creates a green suit with a dragonfly logo on it because he is completely convinced that his powers came from the dragonfly bite. For the first time, Rick puts on his superhero suit and climbs onto a tall rooftop. But suddenly another superhero appears there, wearing a costume that looks almost identical to Rick's. The superhero tells Rick that this rooftop is his usual spot and that he sits there every day. Rick casually replies that they can simply share the space. And that is where Rick's true superhero journey begins. The next morning, Rick goes to a job interview at an office because he wants to earn money. He believes that having a good job will help him impress Jill. However, during the interview he does something that makes the entire situation awkward. Rick starts showing the HR manager pictures of himself as a superhero. Proudly, he explains that he is a real superhero who saves people's lives. Instead of being impressed, the manager starts thinking Rick is strange, and within seconds he is rejected. Suddenly, loud screams begin echoing throughout the office. Someone shouts that a university is under attack. The moment Rick hears this, he realizes they are talking about his own college. Without saying a word, he suddenly disappears. At the university, complete chaos has broken out. Uncle Lou has now fully transformed into a dangerous supervillain. He is wearing a shiny silver suit, and his appearance is more terrifying than ever before. His evil plan is to drain the blood of university students and use it to create a powerful serum that will make him even stronger. Just as the attack begins, the dragonfly superhero, Rick, arrives on the scene. For the first time, Rick and Uncle Lou stand face to face. A fierce battle immediately begins. Uncle Lou throws razor-sharp blades at Rick, but Rick's superhero suit is so durable that the attacks have no effect on him. Slowly, Uncle Lou realizes that he cannot win this fight. Eventually, he is forced to retreat and escape. During the attack, Jill is also present at the university. She is completely impressed by the mysterious superhero who has just saved everyone. However, she has no idea that Rick is hiding behind the mask. That night, Jill is leaving a theater. Rick secretly follows her because he finally wants to confess his feelings. But the moment he approaches her, all his confidence disappears. He becomes nervous, shy, and unable to speak properly. Then Jill starts the conversation herself. She tells Rick that she had hoped he might ask her out on a date someday. Hearing this leaves Rick so shocked and happy that he cannot say a single word. Jill misunderstands his silence and leaves disappointed. She still does not realize that the shy boy standing in front of her is the same superhero who saved her life. A short while later, some thugs begin following Jill. The situation gradually becomes dangerous. But suddenly, the dragonfly superhero appears. In his superhero form, Rick easily defeats all the thugs and once again saves Jill's life. Jill becomes even more impressed with her mysterious hero and sincerely thanks him, never realizing that Rick is hiding behind the mask. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou is examining his machine in his laboratory. There, he discovers a terrifying truth. If he drains the life energy of 500 people using the machine, he will never die. He will become completely immortal. After learning this, Uncle Lou makes his decision without any guilt. To achieve immortality, he is willing to take thousands of lives. Sometime later, Rick's aunt invites Jill over for dinner. Jill openly admits that she has become a huge fan of the dragonfly superhero because he has saved her life twice. She even says that she thinks she may be falling in love with him. Hearing this makes Rick both happy and troubled at the same time. Just then, Lawrence arrives along with Uncle Lou. Meanwhile, Rick quietly takes his superhero costume and heads to his room. He is quickly changing clothes when Uncle Lou suddenly enters. Rick's secret identity is now dangerously close to being exposed. In truth, Uncle Lou already suspects that Rick is the dragonfly superhero. That is why he carefully searches Rick's room. However, Rick cleverly avoids being caught every time. In the end, Uncle Lou finds no evidence proving that Rick is the superhero, so for the moment he leaves peacefully. A little later, Uncle Lou returns to the dining table where everyone is sitting. Rick is now dressed in normal clothes. Then Uncle Lou notices a small wound on Rick's hand. In a calm voice, he asks how Rick got injured. Rick quickly lies and says that he got into a fight with someone. But Uncle Lou immediately realizes that this is no ordinary wound. It is the exact injury caused by one of the blades he threw at the dragonfly superhero during their battle. At that moment, all of Uncle Lou's doubts disappear. He becomes completely certain that Rick is the superhero hiding behind the mask. Suddenly, the atmosphere atmosphere in the room changes completely. Uncle Lou finally reveals his true supervillain form. At the same time, Rick realizes that Uncle Lou did not come merely to learn the truth. He came to kill everyone. Rick quickly tries to protect Jill and himself, but in his panic he loses his balance, falls hard, and is knocked unconscious. During the chaos, Uncle Lou kills Rick's aunt. Sometime later, Rick arrives at the hospital. He wants to tell his uncle the heartbreaking truth that his wife is gone. However, the doctors warn him that his uncle's condition is extremely fragile. If he suffers a major shock, he might die as well. Unfortunately, a careless doctor directly tells his uncle everything. Hearing the news completely breaks him. A few days later, Rick is seen sitting silently at home. After his aunt's death, he is emotionally shattered. He barely talks to anyone. He remains consumed by grief and cannot focus on anything. After a while, his uncle and his friend Trey arrive. His uncle gives him back the old ring that his father gave him before dying. Then he explains its true meaning. He tells Rick that he is a superhero and superheroes never give up. Their duty is to save people no matter how difficult the situation becomes. He also explains that a supervillain is planning to kill thousands of people and that only one person can stop him. Rick sadly replies that he wants to help people, but every time he tries to do something good, everything somehow becomes worse. At that moment, a breaking news report appears on television. The report announces that a massive conference is about to take place in the city, with thousands of people attending. Everyone immediately realizes that such a huge event would be the perfect target for a supervillain. Without wasting any time, Rick and the others head straight toward the conference center. However, Uncle Lou is already there. The biggest problem is that Rick still does not know that Uncle Lou is the real supervillain. Rick approaches Uncle Lou and asks who the supervillain is. Keeping a calm expression, Uncle Lou lies. Pointing toward an ordinary monk standing on stage, he says, "That is the supervillain." Without thinking, Rick believes him. He immediately puts on his superhero costume and attacks the innocent monk. Taking advantage of the confusion, Uncle Lou quietly slips away. A short time later, he reappears in his true supervillain form. Uncle Lou launches a full-powered attack against Rick. He collapses an entire roof on top of him. Rick barely manages to survive and uses all his strength to lift the roof, but it falls again, trapping him underneath. Now Uncle Lou starts throwing razor-sharp blades toward Rick in an attempt to finish him off. At the last second, Jill suddenly runs in front of Rick. She has completely fallen in love with the Dragonfly superhero and, without caring about her own safety, stands between him and the attack. The blades strike Jill directly. She is severely injured. Seeing Jill badly wounded causes a volcano of rage to erupt inside Rick. He immediately picks her up in his arms and races toward the rooftop. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou has already activated his deadly machine. The machine is continuously draining the life energy of everyone nearby. People begin collapsing to the ground as they grow weaker. At the same time, Uncle Lou becomes stronger and stronger. If he is not stopped within seconds, he will become completely immortal. Gathering every bit of courage he has left, Rick charges toward the machine. Using its power, he somehow manages to save Jill. Slowly, Jill begins breathing again. Rick realizes that he has pulled her back from the brink of death, but the greatest danger is still not over. Rick understands that he has very little time remaining. In only a few seconds, Uncle Lou will become immortal forever. If that happens, the entire world will be in danger. Meanwhile, Uncle Lou continues hurling sharp swords and blades at Rick. This time, however, Rick is not afraid. He keeps moving forward without stopping. Using the last bit of strength left inside him, he finally reaches Uncle Lou and launches one final attack. The blow lands directly on the machine. An enormous explosion erupts. The entire area shakes violently. With that explosion, Uncle Lou's deadly machine is completely destroyed. The moment the machine is gone, the supervillain's reign comes to an end forever. However, the explosion is so powerful that both Rick and Jill are thrown off the rooftop. As they fall, Jill suddenly notices the ring on Rick's finger, the same ring he always wears. At that exact moment, she realizes the truth. The Dragonfly superhero was none other than Rick himself. Finally, she understands that a true hero is not defined by powers or costumes. A true hero is someone who stands up for others at the right moment, even when they are afraid, even when they are completely broken inside. And with that, Rick's emotional and entertaining superhero journey comes to an end.